Right. So today we are going to like really dive deep into this whole dictatorship thing.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it's going to get kind of wild.
Okay.
We've got some really choice excerpts from Wikipedia to pick apart on this.
Okay.
And we're going way beyond just like defining what a dictatorship, even IS,
Yeah.
like we're talking about really dissecting the gears and levers that make this whole thing tick.
Right.
So like imagine if you like for a second
Okay.
waking up every day
Mm,
and like one person's word is law.
yeah.
What would that even feel like?
Well, it's easy to kind of get caught up in this idea of the singular, all-powerful figure.
Right.
But I think understanding the context in which dictatorships actually arise is crucial.
Okay.
I mean, these regimes don't just appear out of thin air. They exploit vulnerabilities that already exist.
Okay.
And they often prey on societies that are grappling with instability, economic turmoil, or maybe some deep social divisions.
So it's less about a power vacuum then and more like a power grab at like the perfect moment.
Precisely. Think of it like this.
Yeah.
A dictator often positions themselves as the solution to chaos,
Oh, interesting.
promising swift action and a return to order.
Okay.
And it's a seductive narrative,
Yeah.
especially when people are desperate for stability and security.
Right. Because they're like, just tell me what to do. I need someone to take charge. Just
Exactly.
get us out of this mess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that takes us right into the how of it all.
Okay.
What exactly is a dictatorship?
Yeah.
It's more nuanced than just one person calling all the shots.
Right.
Like, how would you break that down?
So, in essence, a dictatorship is defined by its absolute power,
Okay.
completely unrestrained by any meaningful constitutional limitations.
How about rules?
Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
There are no real checks and balances, no independent judiciary,
Right.
and definitely no pesky opposition to hold them accountable.
So basically the exact opposite of a democracy.
Yes.
Where power is intentionally fragmented
Yes.
to avoid anyone getting too much of it.
Exactly. In a dictatorship, the ruling individual or group
Okay.
controls everything.
Everything.
The laws, the economy, the
Right.
media,
Wow.
even the flow of information.
Kind of terrifying when you think about
It
it.
can be. They
Yeah.
can silence dissenting voices,
Right.
rewrite history to fit their narrative,
All right.
and use propaganda to manufacture consent among the population.
Okay, so we're talking about a system that is designed to maintain control.
Yes.
And often through pretty ruthless methods.
Often, yes.
But how do they get away with it?
Yeah.
Is it just brute force or is there more to it?
Well, while brute force is certainly part of the equation,
Sure.
dictatorships are often masters of manipulation.
Okay.
Take, for example, the suppression of opposition.
Right.
We're not just talking about imprisoning political rivals.
Right.
It's about creating an atmosphere of fear so pervasive that people censor themselves out of fear.
It's like preemptively silencing dissent
Exactly.
by making the cost of speaking out too high.
Yeah. And then there's the control of information.
Okay.
It's not enough to censor opposing views.
Right.
Dictators craft a compelling narrative.
Right.
They might manipulate education systems to indoctrinate youth.
Wow.
Rewrite history books to erase any inconvenient truths.
It's like they're rewriting reality.
Essentially, yeah.
Wow.
And even control access to the internet to limit exposure to alternative viewpoints.
So it's about shaping the very reality people exist in. No wonder it's so hard to break free from that kind of control.
And let's not forget the cult of personality often employed.
Okay.
Think of those iconic images of dictators plastered everywhere on billboards in classrooms, even in people's homes.
Oh, yeah.
This constant visual reinforcement cultivates a sense of awe, even worship, around the dictator, further solidifying their grip on power.
It's almost like they're trying to create this aura of infallibility. This idea that they are larger than life and their decisions are beyond question.
Exactly. But remember, not all dictatorships operate in the same way.
Okay.
There are distinct types, each with its own set of characteristics and methods for maintaining control.
Okay, so let's break down these different flavors of dictatorship.
Yeah.
What are we working with here?
Well, you have your classic military dictatorships,
Okay.
often arising from periods of political instability or unrest. Imagine a group of generals seizing control,
Okay.
claiming to be the only ones capable of restoring order.
Right.
Augusto Pinochet's regime in Chile, for example,
Okay.
where he took power through a military coup, is a prime example of this type.
So it's raw military might propping up the dictator.
Often, yes.
What other forms are there?
Then you have one-party states, In this scenario, it's not just about a single charismatic leader,
Right.
but rather an entire political party
Wow.
becoming intertwined with the very fabric of the state.
Wow.
Think of the Soviet Union under Stalin,
Right.
where the Communist Party controlled every aspect of society.
Right.
These regimes often build elaborate systems of surveillance and control,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
ensuring that any potential rivals, whether individuals or competing ideologies, are swiftly dealt with.
It's like they embed themselves so deeply that it becomes almost impossible to disentangle the party from the government, let alone challenge their authority.
Exactly. And of course, we can't forget about personalist dictatorships,
Right.
where a single charismatic leader takes center stage.
Right.
Think of figures like Hitler in Nazi Germany or Mussolini in Italy.
Right.
They often rely on a combination of charisma propaganda and a carefully crafted public image to maintain their hold on power. These leaders often tap into deep-seated societal anxieties,
Okay.
promising to restore a lost glory or to protect the nation from some perceived threat.
Mm.
Their rise is often fueled by powerful propaganda machines that amplify their message and demonize their opponents.
So it's this potent mix of personality propaganda and exploiting vulnerabilities that allows these regimes to flourish.
Often, yes.
But knowing this, are there any common threads in how these dictatorships impact the lives of everyday people?
Yeah, the consequences of living under such regimes are sadly quite predictable.
Okay.
One of the most immediate and devastating consequences is the widespread violation of human rights.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech, assembly, and the press are often the first casualties.
Because any form of dissent, any voice that challenges the dictator's narrative
Right.
is seen as a threat that needs to be silenced.
Precisely.
Right.
This often leads to a climate of fear and self-censorship,
Yeah.
where people are afraid to express their true thoughts and opinions, even in private.
Wow.
But the impact goes far beyond basic freedoms.
Okay.
Dictatorships frequently struggle with economic stagnation and corruption.
Why is that?
Think about it. When power is concentrated in the hands of a few unaccountable individuals,
Yeah.
it creates fertile ground for cronyism, where favors are traded and those in the inner circle enrich themselves at the expense of the nation's well-being.
So it's this vicious cycle where the dictator's grip on power stifles innovation,
Yes.
discourages foreign investment,
Right.
and ultimately keeps the majority of the population trapped in poverty and despair.
And it doesn't end there.
Oh, no.
Dictatorships often find themselves increasingly isolated on the global stage.
Really?
Their human rights abuses, disregard for international law,
Right.
and often aggressive foreign policies make them pariahs in the international community.
Oh, wow.
This isolation can lead to sanctions, economic hardship,
Yeah.
and even military intervention in extreme cases.
It's like they build these walls both physically and metaphorically
Right.
to keep the rest of the world at bay, which begs the question, are there any glimmers of hope for those living under these oppressive regimes?
Yeah.
Can dictatorships ever transition to something more democratic?
While the path to democracy is rarely smooth or straightforward,
All right.
history offers us compelling examples of transformation.
Sometimes it's a gradual process of reform initiated from within the regime itself.
Interesting.
This could involve loosening restrictions on freedom of speech, allowing for greater political participation, and establishing independent institutions to provide a check on executive power.
So it's like a controlled dismantling of the dictatorship,
Yes.
rather than a sudden chaotic collapse.
Exactly.
Okay.
But this requires a delicate balance of internal pressure and a willingness from those in power to relinquish some control.
Wow, that's a tough one.
It can be.
Yeah.
In other cases, transitions are triggered by external events.
Okay.
Think about the fall of the Berlin Wall, for example, or the wave of revolutions that swept across Eastern Europe in the late 1980s.
Right.
These momentous events demonstrate the power of collective action and the yearning for freedom that can ignite even in the darkest of times.
It's almost as if those regimes, despite their outward appearance of strength, are built on a foundation of sand. Once the winds of change start blowing, the whole structure can crumble surprisingly quickly.
Precisely.
Wow.
And while the path to democracy is often long and arduous,
Right.
it's vital to remember that there is no single blueprint for success.
Okay.
Each transition is shaped by its unique historical context,
Right.
cultural nuances,
Mm-hmm.
and the specific challenges it faces.
So there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
No magic formula for dismantling a dictatorship and establishing a thriving democracy in its place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But one common thread we see in successful transitions is the vital role played by civil society. Okay, what do you mean by civil society?
By civil society, we mean those organizations, movements, and individuals who are independent of the state and who are actively working to promote human rights,
Right.
advocate for democratic reforms,
Yeah.
and hold those in power accountable.
So it's about empowering citizens to become agents of change,
Yes.
to raise their voices,
Mm-hmm.
and demand a say in how their societies are governed.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And this is where the international community can play a crucial role as well.
Okay. How so?
By providing support for civil society organizations, promoting free and fair elections,
Right.
and holding dictatorships accountable for human rights abuses.
Yeah.
Democratic nations can help create a more favorable environment for change to occur.
So it's a multi-pronged approach,
Yeah.
combining internal pressure for reform with external support and accountability mechanisms.
Precisely.
Okay.
And technology, particularly the rise of the internet and social media, has added a whole new dimension to this struggle.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
On the one hand, these tools can be incredibly powerful
Yeah.
for organizing protests, disseminating information, and connecting with like-minded individuals, even in the face of state censorship and repression.
We've seen this play out in recent years with movements like the Arab Spring,
Exactly.
where social media platforms became virtual battlegrounds for freedom of expression and mobilization.
Exactly.
Right.
But it's not a one-sided equation.
Right.
Dictators are also becoming more tech-savvy,
Right.
using these very same tools to spread propaganda,
Good.
monitor their citizens,
Oh,
and stifle dissent in increasingly sophisticated ways.
so it's this constant game of cat and mouse,
Essentially, yes.
with both sides trying to leverage technology to their advantage, which begs the question, what can those of us living in democratic societies do to support this fight for freedom?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
Right.
It absolutely does.
Does our involvement actually make a difference?
It absolutely does. Even if we feel geographically distant or removed from these struggles,
Okay.
there are tangible actions we can take to make a difference.
So it's not about being powerless bystanders,
No.
but rather recognizing that we have a role to play in advancing the cause of freedom and democracy.
Precisely.
Yeah, it really highlights how interconnected we all are
Mm-hmm.
and how even our smallest actions can ripple outward
Right.
and contribute to this larger movement for change.
Yes.
It's almost like a domino effect
Mm-hmm.
where each act of awareness,
Yeah.
each conscious choice
Mm-hmm.
can help to shift the balance towards a more just and equitable world.
Precisely. And it circles back to that sense of agency we were discussing earlier.
Right.
We might not be able to single-handedly topple a dictator,
Right.
but we can choose to be conscious consumers,
Mhm.
informed citizens, and vocal advocates for those whose freedoms are being denied.
So it's about channeling that feeling of being overwhelmed into something constructive,
Yes,
using it as fuel to power our own actions, no matter how seemingly small.
exactly. And those actions can take many forms.
Okay, like what?
Supporting independent media outlets that operate in these oppressive environments, for example, is crucial. They play a vital role in providing alternative narratives, exposing corruption, and holding those in power accountable, often at great personal risk.
To shining a light into the darkest corners,
Yeah.
exposing the truth that dictators try so hard to suppress.
Precisely.
Wow.
And for those who are passionate about specific human rights issues,
Okay.
there are organizations dedicated to advocating for those facing persecution or discrimination based on their religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or political beliefs.
Wow.
Your support can make a real difference in their lives.
It's about finding those causes that resonate with us, where our values align,
Yes.
and directing our energy and resources towards making a tangible impact.
And let's not forget the power of simply having conversations about these issues with our friends, families, and communities.
Yeah.
Raising awareness, challenging misconceptions,
Right.
and encouraging critical thinking among those around us can plant seeds of change that spread far beyond our immediate circles.
It's like we become ripples in a pond, our
Hmm.
actions extending outwards,
Yes.
sparking new conversations and
Mhm.
inspiring others to take action.
Exactly. And remember, while the challenges we've discussed today might seem daunting,
Sure.
history is a testament to the indomitable human spirit.
Okay.
Throughout history, seemingly unshakable regimes have crumbled
Yeah.
when faced with persistent resistance and a resolute belief in the power of collective action.
It's about holding on to that hope, that
Yes.
belief that even in the darkest of times, a brighter future is possible.
And that brings us to our final thought, doesn't it?
I think so.
We've delved into the complexities of dictatorship,
We have.
explored its various forms and consequences,
Right.
and discussed tangible ways we can contribute to a more just and equitable world.
We've explored how even our seemingly small actions can have a ripple effect,
Yes.
amplifying the voices of those fighting for freedom and holding those in power accountable.
But perhaps the most important takeaway from our deep dive today is this.
Okay.
The fight for freedom and democracy is not a spectator sport.
Oh, wow.
It's an ongoing struggle that demands our attention, our engagement, and our unwavering commitment to building a world where everyone's rights are respected
Yeah.
and where the principles of justice and equality prevail.
So it's on all of us to stay informed, to raise our voices, to make conscious choices, and to never, ever give up on the pursuit of a more just and equitable world for all.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been quite a journey.
It has been fascinating. Thanks for having me.